Welcome everybody. As a club treasurer, you'll have certain tasks you'll be performing each month to keep your club financial records. In this presentation, we'll cover the basics of how you should perform those. This is part of a three-part treasurer training series. In the first part, we gave you an orientation to your investment club accounting. This is good background information for everyone in your club so they can get a basic understanding about how your club finances work and what you will and will not be able to account for with bivio. Tonight's presentation is aimed at treasurers. We'll be discussing how to perform the regular tasks you'll be doing each month. The third and final presentation is also designed for treasurers. In it, we'll be discussing the tasks you'll be performing less often as a club treasurer. Bivio is committed to providing you a system which allows you to be an effective club treasurer and spend a minimum amount of time and effort doing your club accounting. We want you to be a one-minute treasurer. To help achieve this, it helps if you can set up your club finances in the most simple way you can. We recommend that you only use a single financial account, and we also recommend that you use AccountSync to read in your financial data automatically. In this presentation, we're going to describe how you can be a one-minute treasurer. As a club treasurer, you will have 4 types of tasks that you're going to be performing each month. First, you'll be collecting, depositing, and recording member payments. Then you'll be making investments and also recording the investment transactions. Of course, as all good financial professionals do, you will need to verify the accuracy of your records. You'll use a monthly reconciliation process to make sure your bivio records stay in agreement with your brokerage statements. And finally, each month at your club meetings, you'll provide everyone with a report on your club's financial status. Let's start with the first task, recording your member contributions. We call these member payments. There's more to accounting for member contributions than just recording the receipt of cash. Member contributions purchase shares or units of ownership of your club. One of the things bivio does for you is to keep track of your club ownership. A contribution to your club is an investment in a type of business called a partnership. Just like when you purchase stock, you will have a basis for your investment in the club. When you withdraw money from the club, you cash out your shares and there's a capital gain or loss to report on your taxes. Fortunately, you do not have to do all the accounting to keep track of all this. All you need to do is to make sure to enter member payments using the Payments form. You will find it by selecting the Payment button on the Accounting Members page, or, as I'm going to show you a little later, directly from a link in an AccountSync email. The Member Payments form looks like this. The information you enter gives bivio what is needed to do the accounting for the contributions correctly. At the top of the Member Payments form, you'll see 2 dates you need to fill in. They are the transaction date, which is the date the deposit was received in your account, and the valuation date. A valuation date is needed because member contributions purchase shares or units of ownership in your club. The unit value on this date is used to calculate how many units the member payment purchases. Your club may use one valuation date for all deposits made during the month or use the same date as the transaction date. For simplicity, bivio recommends you use the transaction date. If you do that, your member contributions purchase shares in your club just as if you were purchasing shares in a mutual fund. At the bottom of the Member Payments form, you'll enter the amount of each member's contribution. Your job as a treasurer will probably actually start a little before you get to filling in the form. Here are all the steps you'll go through to handle your member payments. First, you'll collect the contributions. Your club should decide how everyone will make their member contributions. Everyone can write checks and you can collect them at your meetings and mail them in, or your members can mail their checks directly to the broker themselves. If you'd like, many brokers now allow members to easily set up electronic bill pay from their bank directly to your brokerage account. You'll know your deposits have arrived because you'll receive an AccountSync email. It informs you that checks were received at the brokerage account and AccountSync has pulled the deposit information into bivio. All you have to do is go into bivio and identify whose check is whose. Here's what that AccountSync email will look like. You can see that this one lists 2 unidentified credits. AccountSync knows there were deposits, but it has no way to know what they were for. You need to go to bivio and enter some more information to complete the entry. Here's a link that will take you right to where you need to go. When you click on it, you'll go to the transactions list for your brokerage account. Here's one of the deposit transactions that you need to identify. This box contains a little drop-down menu. If you click on the little arrow, a menu appears. You will need to select what type of deposit this was. Select Multiple Payment. You'll go right to the payment entry form that I showed you earlier. At the bottom, all the payments that were received on the same day will be filled in. Bivio will attempt to assign the payment amounts to the correct member. In fact, Bivio has invented a way for AccountSync to learn which deposit should be credited to which member. We call it the penny payment system. To use it, assign a different penny amount to each member to add to their contribution. For example, Rose always adds 2 cents to her payment, and Raleigh always adds 5 cents. The first time you enter payments, you'll need to manually enter the correct amounts for the correct members. After that, you'll find that AccountSync will have learned which cents amount belongs to which member and will have the amount filled in next to their name when you open up the form. All you have to do is to make sure they're correct and click OK. That will take you back to the transaction list and you'll see all your payment entries have been made. You no longer have unidentified credits. The extra cents amount on each person's payment is also very useful for tracking down problems. It makes it easy to tell whose check was missing if one doesn't arrive at your broker for some reason. If you or any of your members would like to see all the member contributions that have been recorded during the year, there is a summary report you can find on the Accounting Reports page, which lists them by month. It's called the Member Contributions and Withdrawals Report. And that's all there is to entering your member contributions each month. All you need to do is remember that all contributions are entered as member payments, and all payments need to be entered using the member payment form. The second thing you'll be doing each month is making sure all your investment transactions are entered. As treasurer, you may not only be recording this information, but also placing the trades. Basically, for your investments, AccountSync will make the entries for you from the transactions that happen in your brokerage account. This will include stock purchases, stock sales, dividends and interest that you receive, and any reorganizations. All you'll need to do is a quick double check of what was entered each month by comparing the information to your brokerage statement. When any of those types of investment entries happen, they will be imported after the market closes, and you will receive an email just like when the member payments were deposited. It will look something like this. Here's a stock purchase that this club made, and here's some interest they received. There's also a notation showing whether your cash balance in Bivio agrees with your brokerage. If it doesn't, you should investigate why. It's something you'll want to make sure you fix. We'll talk about how to do that a little bit later. Unlike member payments, there should be no further entries you need to make for your investment transactions. However, occasionally you may want to edit a transaction. The easiest way for you to do this is to go to what we call transaction lists. On each of the accounting pages, Accounts, Investments, and Members, you can click on the name of an account, an investment, or a member to get a transaction list. For example, on this accounting account screen, you can click on the name of your brokerage account and see all the transactions that have been recorded in that account. In the list, you will see that it says AccountSync next to the entries AccountSync made. Here's a purchase transaction. If you'd like to edit any of the details of this transaction, you can select the edit link you'll see on the right side. This will open the investment purchase screen. If you need to change any of the information on this screen, make your corrections and then click the OK button at the bottom of the screen to save the updated information. As I mentioned earlier, you can see transactions sorted by account, by member, and by investment. This helps you find and focus in on the information you're looking for. For example, if you ever want to see all the entries made for a specific investment, you can just click on its name on the Accounting Investments page. Since this club purchased Jack Henry, they've been receiving dividends. The investment transaction list for Jack Henry gives them a convenient place to check to make sure that all the dividends have been entered correctly. It comes in very handy at tax time. One of the more complicated accounting tasks that every investor needs to deal with are reorganizations. This is where bivio AccountSync really shines. A reorganization can be something like a split, a spin-off, or a merger. It used to be there were just these three simple categories, but nowadays it seems like there are more and more special circumstances that need to be accounted for. Depending on how the company sets up the reorganization, it can have a variety of tax consequences. It is important to understand how to account for it correctly. The correct accounting cannot be done until information provided by the company has been analyzed. Lucky for you, this is part of your AccountSync service. We do the research and make the reorganization entries for you. This means you sometimes have to be a little patient if you own a stock that goes through reorganization. But your patience will pay off because you know your investment records have been adjusted correctly. Reorganization entries are important because they can affect the amount of taxes you pay. Let's just step back for a minute and talk a little bit about your investments and tax reporting. As you know, when you own an investment, there are tax implications related to any gain or loss you have when you sell it. We call these capital gains and losses. They are calculated by subtracting something called your adjusted cost basis from the net proceeds of your sale. For tax purposes, gains and losses are classified as either short-term or long-term, depending on how long you held the investment before you sold it. Long-term means you held the investment longer than a year. Short-term means you held it for less time than that. For most investors, long-term gains are currently taxed at a special lower rate than short-term gains. To determine your capital gains, you need to know your cost basis. It will be different for each purchase of an investment. The original cost basis is the total of the original price you paid and any commissions and fees. Once you own a stock, its basis can continue to be adjusted due to the tax impact of things like wash sales and corporate actions such as stock splits, mergers, spin-offs, and stock dividends. In addition, if part of any distribution you receive from an investment is a return of capital, that will affect cost basis. You might not find out about this type of adjustment until tax time. Your basis at the time of a sale, after taking all these things into account, is called your adjusted cost basis. You used to be on your honor to keep track of your cost basis and report your capital gains correctly on your taxes. But apparently that wasn't effective because new cost basis reporting rules have begun to take effect recently. Prior to the new rules, the only thing your broker had to report to the IRS each year was the gross proceeds from any sale you had. Under the new rules, they will also have to track and report your adjusted cost basis and report whether you held the investment long or short term. Using this information, the IRS has a way to double-check the amount you are claiming for capital gains and losses on your taxes. So it's very important that your information in bivio, which will be used to prepare your taxes, match what they will report. Whenever you sell a stock, the sale details will be shown on the capital gains and losses report in bivio. One of the columns on this report is your cost basis. Your broker will have a similar report called the Realized Gain and Loss Report, which will show the cost basis they show in their records. If there are any differences between what is shown in bivio and what your broker shows, it is important to figure out why. Your broker may not have the correct information because they had no obligation to track cost basis prior to 2011. But you need to understand the reason for any differences because there might be entries you need to correct in bivio. We'd recommend you make this comparison every time you have a sale during the year. That way, if there are corrections to be made, you have some time to work through them and get help from us if you need it. If you don't find the differences until it's tax season, you'll be competing with lots of other clubs for help from us, and it might impact how long it will take you to get your taxes completed. Just one more important reminder as we're discussing accounting for your investments and your taxes. As we discussed in the orientation webinar, bivio only provides the accounting and tax reporting you need for investment in stocks of publicly traded corporations, stock mutual funds, stock ETFs, and if you have our active partnership service, options. If your club invests in things like REITs, real estate investment trusts, master limited partnerships, or commodity ETFs, at best you will have very complicated tax issues you will need to figure out how to handle at tax time. At worst, you will need to hire a CPA to update your club accounting and prepare your tax forms. Some investments just bring along accounting and tax issues that are beyond the scope of the services you get from us. So stay a happy camper. Make sure your club only invests in publicly traded corporate stock, stock mutual funds, and stock ETFs. Ask before you purchase if you have any questions at all. We're glad to research a ticker and let you know if there are any issues before you get into trouble. So basically, those are the main things you'll need to know to do your accounting for your investments. AccountSync will make the entries for you from the transactions that happen in your brokerage account. That will include your stock purchases, your stock sales, your dividends and interest received, and any reorganizations. All you'll need to do is double check them for accuracy each month, which is the third monthly treasurer task we're going to discuss. One of the most important things you need to do as a club treasurer is to verify that your bivio records agree with your brokerage records each month. We call this process reconciliation. If you're using AccountSync, this should actually be a very quick process. Sometimes people think that if they're using AccountSync that there is absolutely nothing they need to do as club treasurers. That is almost true, but not quite. AccountSync is very good, but it is still a computer talking to another computer, and it needs human oversight. A quick reconciliation each month means your records are always up to date. It also means you won't have very many transactions to go through if you do find a problem. If you're not using AccountSync, reconciling becomes that much more important. No matter how perfect we are, we all still make occasional typos or forget to make important entries. You cannot know that any accounting transactions that you enter today will be correct unless you know that all your historical information is correct. Just because your bivio site shows a lot of numbers doesn't mean they're useful for anything. Without verification, any reports you prepare, including your taxes, will just be garbage in, garbage out. The good news is that reconciliation should be a quick process. First, you'll need the reports that you're going to use to make your comparison. You'll need a copy of your latest brokerage statement and a club valuation report that's dated the same as the statement date. All you need to do is compare the cash balance shown on your valuation report to that shown on your brokerage statement, and then compare the number of shares of each stock owned with the number shown on your brokerage statement. Edit, delete, or add any transactions needed to correct your records, and that's it. Next, we'll go through each of these steps in a little more detail. Your brokerage statement will look something like this. You may receive a paper copy each month, but more and more brokers are going to electronic versions. It still looks the same. You just have to access it online and print it out using your own paper and ink if you'd like a hard copy. You'll have to get to know the statements your broker sends out, but somewhere on them you'll be able to find the cash balance in your account, the number of shares each stock you own as of the statement date, and a list of all the transactions that have occurred in your account for the month. You'll compare your brokerage statement to a valuation report dated on the same day as the statement. The first comparison you'll make is to verify that the cash balances agree between bivio and your brokerage statement. Uh-oh, in this case there's a problem somewhere. These cash balances don't agree. We're going to need to find out why and correct whatever problem might exist. We'll go through how to do that in a minute. You should also compare the number of shares of each stock you own. Your valuation statement should show the same number that your brokerage statement does. If they are different, you may have missed or incorrectly entered a stock transaction at some point, and you need to find it and fix it. The investment transaction lists I showed you earlier are a really good place to start to figure out what the problem is. To search for the reason the cash balance is off, we'll use the brokerage account transaction list from bivio. What's nice about online brokers today is that you can also get transaction lists from your brokerage website. Once you have the two lists, all you need to do is go down Transactions, checking to make sure all transactions on your brokerage list are also entered in bivio, and that the amounts agree with the amounts in your brokerage records. For example, here's the purchase of 100 shares of Neogen, which you can see is the same in bivio as on the brokerage statement. Here's the receipt of an $11.25 dividend, which you can also see is the same in bivio as on the brokerage statement. Here's a money market entry. Since money market accounts do not change in price each day like stocks, they are normally tracked as cash. Purchases and redemptions of money market funds are not tracked as separate transactions in your bivio records. As you go through this line-by-line comparison, eventually you'll find the problem. In this case, the check receipt on 12/16 for $25.03 on the brokerage list disagrees with the amount in the bivio records of $26.03. This is the source of the cash balance being off. To correct it, click on the edit link that you will find on the incorrect transaction. This was an incorrect payment entry, so the payment form opens up. Find the incorrect entry, correct the payment amount, and click OK to update the transaction. After the corrections, you can recheck and you'll see that the cash balance in bivio now agrees with the brokerage statement. Because we call it AccountSync, sometimes people get confused with how it works. It is not a true synchronization, it just reads in new entries. It does not look to see if they've already been made. If you find that AccountSync has duplicated an entry that you've already made manually, it's fine to delete the extra one. If you have missing entries, you'll need to make them manually. AccountSync only pulls in transactions newer than the most recent one in your account. If you're missing an older one, it will not go back and fill it in. If you don't know how to correct a problem, email us in support@bivio.com and we'll be glad to help you learn how to do it. But in general, you can make any manual entries you need to using forms you get to from buttons like these you'll find at the top of the accounts, the members, and the investment pages. There is one thing that might not agree exactly between your brokerage statement and your valuation report, but it's not something you need to fix. This is the market value of your stocks. Occasionally, due to different data sources that may have determined prices at different times, or a slightly different rounding method on your broker's report versus bivio's, you may see a penny or so difference in the total market value of one of your holdings. This isn't something that you need to fix. What is important is that the number of shares of each stock agrees exactly, and you are sure that you do not have any unlisted investments whose prices are not getting automatically updated. But getting an exact match between bivio and a brokerage statement for the market values of each of your holdings is not part of the reconciliation process. So just to summarize, it's extremely important that you keep your records accurate and up to date, but don't stress out about it too much. Just take a few minutes each month to reconcile your accounts quickly by comparing your cash balances and your number of shares of each stock with your brokerage statements. Make sure to correct anything you find that doesn't agree, and you'll find it easy to stay on top of things. The final monthly task you'll have as your club treasurer is to report at your club meeting. You'll want to give a brief report that will show your club two things: the financial status of your club and the current status of each member's ownership. You can use the first three reports you will find on the Accounting Reports page to do this. They are the Valuation Report, the Member Status Report, and the Transaction History Report. The purpose of the Valuation Report is to show the current value of all your club assets. It will also show you the amount of cash you have available to invest. I encourage you to stay away from spending too much time looking at the unrealized gains and losses column. The Valuation Report is not really very helpful to use as input for making your investing decisions. The amount of gain or loss you have in an investment does not really tell you whether or not you should continue to hold it. The second report you should show each month is the Member Status Report. It shows several things, including the payments you've recorded for the previous month. This shows your members that you're keeping track of their contribution amounts correctly. The report also shows the market value of each club member's share of the club. This is what their account is currently worth. Showing this report protects both you and your club members. If something is incorrect, their club account is not being tracked correctly and income and expenses are not being allocated to them correctly. Everyone should be involved in verifying that their payments have been recorded correctly each month. Finding issues quickly means they can be fixed before they affect things which are difficult to correct, such as payment of incorrect amounts for withdrawals or filing incorrect taxes. Finally, show everyone the transaction history report. This shows the transactions you've recorded so everybody can see the latest activity in your account. You'll see things like how much interest you received this month, any stock purchases or sales that were executed, and any dividends that you've received. So that's your monthly treasurer's report, a valuation report, a member status report, and a transaction history report. In summary, these are the tasks you'll be performing monthly as a club treasurer. You'll collect, deposit, and record member payments. You'll record your investment activity, reconcile your club records, and give a report to your club. Don't forget, it shouldn't take you a long time to do these things. Keep your club finances simple so you can truly be a one-minute treasurer.